Hello, friends, and welcome to Rise Up in Real Estate, where we are on a quest. We are looking for the extra in the ordinary. And I'm Tad Fulford, and I will be your host on this journey where we will take an honest look at what makes ordinary people extraordinary. Exactly how can we be extra in our personal and our professional lives? In this season of the Rise Up in Real Estate adventure, there will be a monthly rhythm, meaning each month we will have 4 unique episodes. In one episode, we'll tackle a pressing current real estate industry thought. In another, we will chat with a local difference maker in the real estate space. For our 3rd episode, we will host a respected national thought leader. And finally, we will have a 4th bonus and surprise episode. And in each episode, we will be digging into not only what those people think, but who those people are. Along the way, it's my hope that you'll laugh some, you'll be challenged some, you will get inspired some, and if we are lucky, maybe even figure out a way or two you can rise up in your own life and be the best human that you can be. So the challenge is, let's all rise up. Hey, Rise Up Nation, we're back for another edition of Rise Up in Real Estate. I'm really excited about today's show because the cool thing is I have somebody way smarter than me on the show today. And I know this because I've spent some time with Julie. Julie, I didn't tell you this before we got on the air, but I'm really thankful that you decided you agreed to be on our show. You're going to make us better today by this conversation. And I'm appreciative. Meet my new friend, Julie Stubblefield. Introduce yourself, Julie. Tell me where you are today and what maybe something interesting about you. Thanks for coming on.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for having me. My name's Julie Stubblefield, and I'm Director of Business Development at Nelson Galbreath. And at this very moment, I'm sitting in Greenville, South Carolina, but this is not where I sit most days. Most days I can be found covering the coast from the south end of Pawleys up to the Wilmington, North Carolina area. So that's what I do. I spend most of my time doing business development for real estate law firm, Nelson Galbreath. And that is my little small corner of the world.
Right. And you do it very well. Like we've been around the block. Like our company is now 17 years old, and we've had relationships with a lot of incredible lender partners in our existence. But you guys bring something fresh and new to the table, and I've enjoyed your commitment to us. And I think it's the beginning of a wonderful relationship. Of course, all that really can tell for sure is how it ends up, like where we go from here, right? Like we both have to do our jobs going forward, but it's been fun to get to know you already. And it's fun to have someone that I don't know perfectly well on my show. But I do appreciate so much you taking your time, because I mean, you have a lot of better things to do than to sit and talk to me on this show. So thank you. Tell me where you were born, Julie.
I was born in Greenville, South Carolina. I lived in Greenville until I was 21 years old. I moved to Vermont with the military, and we lived there for about a year and a half. And my mom got sick, so we packed up all of our stuff and came right back down to South Carolina and haven't left since then.
Wow. Did you say Vermont?
Vermont.
We went to yes. we went skiing. I've never snow skied. I'm 54 and I just don't take risks like that. I've never snow skied, but we went to Stowe, Vermont.
Yeah.
It was one of the first trips Mandy and I ever took with her family. Because Mandy and I, we've been together 12 or 13 years now, but that was kind of like me being introduced to the family in a way. And they went on this big ski trip, and I'm like, I don't ski. So I basically stayed in the lodge. We stayed this incredible bed and breakfast. We went around, I think Cabot Cheese, is that up there in Vermont?
Cabot Cheese. Yeah.
So we went Vermont. There, and of course I'm a cheese guy. So we went there, but it was incredibly beautiful. I couldn't get over how beautiful the slopes were, the inside of the lodge was, the cheese. I drove on roads that I would never drive on. Like down here, if there's a chance of snow, they cancel school for a week. There was like ice on the road, and they just go for it, man. I was in that rental car driving like crazy. So I've never heard anybody get transferred to the military to Stowe, Vermont. That's interesting. I mean, to Vermont. That's interesting.
Yes. So the unit that Sean was in was right outside of New York. It was the 10th Mountain Division. It was based out of Watertown, New York. And so they had separate smaller units around the surrounding area. So that's where we were. We actually lived in Killington, which is a huge snow attraction. But when I moved there in May, it was snowing. And we moved in the month of October and it was snowing. And I was not sad about leaving. It's beautiful to visit, but if one of my favorite stories is that if I drove home and my gas light came on, I was going to be in big trouble because we lived so far away from the closest gas station that my car wasn't going to make it. And I only had to learn that lesson one time.
Oh my gosh, that you live that far away. That is crazy. So you're still you're very young, but what did you do? Have you always been doing the job that you're doing now? Like, have you always been around attorneys, or did you do something else in a previous life? Work-wise?
My previous life, I did marketing for a technology company. And then I took some time off when my first child was born and I stayed home with her. And then money was a little bit tight. And so my husband worked during the day and I bartended at night just for some extra money. And I had an attorney walk into the bar one night and he said, I have a job for you if you want to not work behind this bar anymore. Now I'd been to school. I'd worked for a corporation here in Greenville. But in Vermont, there wasn't a whole bunch for me to do. So I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. And that really started my history of what I do now. I started as an assistant to an attorney in Vermont. I moved to Greenville and I worked as a paralegal for a sole practitioner who actually now works for Nelson Galbreath in our downtown Greenville office. I worked for him for about 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And then 10 years ago, I just had my 10-year anniversary. 10 years ago, I was recruited by Nelson Galbreath. They needed someone to come in and increase their resale business. And so that's what they hired me to do. And now here I am. I went through, I worked as a paralegal, I worked as a manager, and then dipped my toes into operations, became part of the senior leadership team here at Nelson Galbreath. And I told him I was never, ever, ever going to be a salesperson. And lo and behold, a year and a half ago, I got my ticket and said, go be a salesperson. So that's what you do now. I really enjoyed it. That's what I do now. I just sell the company.
That's interesting. And how many markets are you guys in now?
We are in, I guess, maybe 6 bigger markets. When I started, we were in one. We were in Greenville, and I was part of the team that kind of grew us to the Columbia market first. Then we went to Atlanta. Then we came to Myrtle Beach, and then slid over to Charleston. And then just about a month and a half ago, we opened up the Wilmington area. We have an office in Leland, North Carolina.
Oh, wow. So you're a little bit like we are. I mean, you've got irons and lots of fires. That's exciting. So you and I have something in common. We have that I learned. We have children of all ages. Tell me about your brood of daughters. Where are they in their lives?
Yes. So my oldest one is 22 and she just graduated. Her name's Michaela, and she just graduated Anderson University. And she is now in her doctorate program to be a doctorate of physical therapy. So she just started that in May. My middle child is getting ready to leave on Thursday to go to Anderson University to get her degree in Christian studies. And then last but not least, I have an 8-year-old who just started 3rd grade last week.
Wow. So what's it like being a mom of a doctoral student? All the way down to a 4th grader or 3rd grader. She's going to
third grader.
Third. Yeah. My daughter Hadley's going into 3rd grade. She's 7, but she started when she was 4 because we were ready for her to be out of the house, quite frankly. But what's it like being a mom to both of you? I mean, you're just a Wonder Woman, kind of. Like, you've got this great career, and then we always forget what goes on at home. But you're the mom. When I see you on Facebook, social media, I'm like, look at, she does so much more than just is a badass at work. So tell me what's it like being mom to all of that.
Yeah. So it's almost like having three different lives because they're in three different worlds. Ryan Grace is the little one, and I'm still very present. I try to be involved in her school. We try to do fun activities on the weekend just to kind of create that foundation of time with family. My middle one, Kennedy, we are really intentional about spending time together inside and outside of church. So she has a huge heart for mission work. And so that's how we connect. And then the oldest one, thankfully, I don't really have to parent her anymore. And I just get to be her friend, which is so awesome because I feel like, I did that one. We're good to go. And I feel really comfortable about she makes good grades. She makes her own money. She's putting herself through school. So I can just be your mom. And that's really nice. It's a nice break from did you take a shower and did you wash your hair on the little one end.
Oh my God. If I had $5 for every time I asked have they brushed their teeth,
yes,
would you please brush your
teeth?
teeth? Like, one. I don't know what happened when I was a kid. You're supposed to brush your teeth 3 times a day. And now we're lucky if they brush it once a day. I mean, it's like brush your dang teeth. So do they all get along well? Are their lives intersect very much because of the difference in age?
Well, thankfully COVID intersected their lives a little bit longer than I think maybe they should have, because the oldest had to stay at home for about 2 years during COVID. So she's more of like a mama to the little one. And the middle and the little one are definitely more like sisters. They fight like sisters. They play like sisters. They annoy each other like sisters. So given that we're currently all in the same, zip code at the moment, we still spend a lot of time together. We have a standing Saturday date where I'll go run errands. They'll come with me. We'll go grab lunch. And I've done that for as long as I can remember. And so that's just kind of what we do. And even my oldest one would come home on Saturdays from college and do that every once in a while. So we still spend a lot of time together.
That's pretty neat. You said something that made me think of something. I don't know how many times people have said those two words together. You said, thankfully, COVID.
Right.
When we were going through COVID, we did not think any thankful about it, right? I was very short-sighted, but I was talking with someone a few days ago whose son is autistic. And she said COVID, he was nonverbal and he's an adult. And she said COVID made him communicate via Zoom so much with his employers that he learned how to talk through it. And now he got his driver's license. He's an adult, got his driver's license. He travels with her. He's got his passport. And she says all because of COVID. Isn't that a miracle? I mean, that's just a miracle.
That's amazing. That is.
And so there are blessings that come out of that. Like you just said, your older daughter and your younger daughter are more tight than they would have been without COVID. Mm-hmm. We learn lessons. I just learn them really slow. It takes me a long time. It takes me a long time to catch it, So that's cool. So you're now in like business development and growth at your company. What do you love the most about your job? And I'm going to ask you next, what do you like the least? So maybe we can start with that. Tell me what you love. Okay. And I know Nathan Nelson's going to listen to it or whoever, but tell me.
I don't know if he'll listen to it or not.
He better support. What is your favorite and your least favorite thing about what you do on a daily basis?
My favorite thing about what I do is connecting with people. So luckily, just because I've worked here for so long and I've been able to watch the company grow from 15 employees to 100, I have been able to create relationships inside our organizations, just from being on the operational side with human resources. But then also, I really enjoy the outside relationships that I have made too. It's a running joke in the Greenville office that I have a whole different set of friends at the beach. in fact, two of them are members of your team, Ashley and Harmony, and we goof off and we play, and they give me a really hard time every time I say something crazy. So it's just really cool to be able to have a bunch of those different relationships. And since I've been through the growth period that we've had, I have relationships from Atlanta to Wilmington. And so that's not something that I would have pegged myself for when I was younger, that I would be someone who would have regional relationships with just friends and colleagues. And so that's one of my most favorite parts of my job.
That's
I drink
cool.
the NG Kool-Aid very, very well.
Yeah, well, people say that a lot, but if it's good Kool-Aid, why not? Right? I mean, there's nothing
Right,
wrong with
100%.
that. I think, and you spike it every once in a while, especially if you're with Ashley. I hope Ashley listens to every episode, so I know she'll be listening to this one. But Ashley has this unique ability, and Harmony does too, but they have this unique ability to connect with people, just like you. So I'm not surprised that the three of you hang out, and we're happy to have you in our circles. What's your least favorite thing?
My least favorite thing. What is my least favorite thing? I would say that my least favorite thing is that sometimes I want to be an attorney and I'm not. So that limits some things that I can do. And I am one of those people who likes to be able to say that I can do anything and everything. So I'm not really like a no, you can't type of person. So I would say that as the one thing that maybe I'm not as happy with is that I am not an attorney. And I feel like if I was, that would be different. But I've also been told I don't have time to go to law school. And my husband may kill me if I took on one more thing. So I guess I'll just have to be happy with just who I am.
I was going to tell you that this train of talking was taking us straight to law school, but you just nixed that. I was getting ready to ask. I'm sure your cohorts in crime there at N&G would say, go do that if that's what you want to do. And actually, my wife is the same way. Like she said a few days ago, we were talking about title companies and a lot of our colleagues out there in the country. Like we're an attorney state, so attorneys close all the transactions. I don't know if Atlanta is Georgia's an attorney state or not, but a lot of states close with not with attorneys, just title companies.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about. She goes, I think I'll just go get because she always wanted to be an attorney. So maybe you and she should talk about that, and y'all could go to school together. And if we could find a good one you can't do that remotely. I don't think. I think you have to be in person. Yeah,
you cannot do that online anymore. During COVID, you could do it online, but I have looked and you cannot do it. I get a wild hair about once every 6 months, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to law school, and then I obviously come down off that crazy train that I jump on for every couple of minutes. But yeah, I haven't found one that you can do it online yet.
You'd like to stay married,
right? Right. I really like my husband, and he is very supportive of my career and my travel. And no, he wouldn't like that.
No, that's funny. So tell me, you also have a devotion to, which to me is like, you can't say these two things together, devotion and running, but you're a very committed to physical fitness. Tell me how you got there. Is that a family thing? Is it just a Julie thing? Tell me about
that. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. I'm so glad you asked. So my husband, Brian, he introduced me to CrossFit about 13 years ago. And he's like, I found this new thing. We were just dating at the time. He said, I found this new thing. It's called CrossFit. You're going to love it. It's nothing but like 30, 45-minute workouts, no running, short. All you do is pick up heavy stuff, makes you look great. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, I need to do that. So I signed up for my first class using one of those like online coupons.
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly, I decided that I couldn't afford that because CrossFit's not cheap. So I went and got my license to be a certified CrossFit coach so that I could teach CrossFit and trade it out for me working out. So I did that for about 10 years. And then some people at work signed up for a Spartan race. And I was like, that's just obstacles. I can do a Spartan race. And about a month out, Brian, who's my husband, he said, you know that there's running involved in that race. And I said, just a little bit. He said 5 miles. So he said, you better go get your running shoes. So I trained for about a month, and I did that race. It was 45 degrees. It was freezing cold. It was windy. I came off that race, and I told one of the ladies at work, I said, I'm never, ever, ever doing that again. I'm going to run on the road. And that was in November of 2019. In February of 2020, I ran my first half marathon. In October of 2020, I ran my first full, and I have not stopped since then. It's my free therapy.
You love running still.
I do. I love it. It's a great place just to be alone and be with your thoughts, and you don't need any equipment except for your shoes. If there's a day that I don't run, which I don't ever run on Sundays, but any other day, I notice a difference in just how I feel, how I interact with people, how I communicate with my children. Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle for me.
Now, the question that I have to ask in all that story, do you still do CrossFit or no?
I do not. I had to hang it up when I trained for a marathon. I didn't have time to do both.
And what does poor Brian do? Does he do anything anymore? Did you leave him at that initial CrossFit gym or what? Like, what's the story with Brian?
He did CrossFit for a couple of years. I guess in 2000, I don't know. He switched jobs. So when he switched jobs, he hung up his CrossFit hat too, because he was CrossFitting. The thing about CrossFit is that they have certain times of the day when you can go. And if that doesn't fit in with your schedule, then it's too bad. You either have to find a different gym or you don't go. So he's also a runner. He doesn't quite have the bug as much as I do. He much prefers to go on walks. He also likes hiking, but I'm not much of a hiker. And so we're not quite running buddies, but he likes to jump on a bike with me every once in a while.
It's so nice of him to introduce you to your life of fitness and then not partake in it. That's wonderful.
I'm sure that he probably wishes he could go back and maybe not mention CrossFit, because I don't typically do anything halfway.
Right. That's what's going to be where I went next. If you live or own property along the coast of South Carolina, you probably need insurance. We Insure Advocates is a locally owned independent agency with industry-leading service support. Our team of customer-centric agents can explain your coverage options and help you craft an insurance program that fits your needs and budget. Data-driven for better value, people-led for better service. That's the difference of we. For all of your property insurance needs, please find us at weinsureadvocates.com or call us at 843-491-6990. Talk about law school, and now you're running marathons. Let's see what else overachieving have you done? Let me see if I can guess one. Have you ever skydived?
I have not. I have a fear of heights.
Well, I mean, you're not that high, right? So you don't. I
am not. I'm very short.
That's funny. So tell me from your perspective, because it's interesting when a lot of people I talk to on here are real estate agents or in the real estate space, and you're connected to it, you're ancillary to that, but you're not in it every day. But I would like to hear your perspective. Like, what does the market feel like to you guys? Because y'all have a lot of experience. And then where are we headed from here? That's like the crystal ball question. Like, where do we go from here, do you think? Just in your opinion, none of the listeners are going to hold you to it, but talk to me about the market and where we're headed.
Well, I think to preface it, we're not anywhere where I thought we would be. If you had asked me the same question in December, I think in December, we were prepared for there to be a much larger slowdown. And I feel like that didn't happen. The interest rates, even though they did affect some sales, they didn't affect all of them. People are still moving. People are still having babies. People are still downsizing. And then obviously on the new home construction side, people are still building and buying houses. So I do think that this was an anomaly. I think that it's still safe to say that there is a potential slowdown coming before it will kind of blow up again. I think it's just a little bit delayed. So if I were to make a calculated guess, I would say that what is usually a busy quarter, which is the last quarter of the year, is probably going to be a little bit slower. And then I think going into the next fiscal year, I really hope to see the interest rates come back down. I made fun of somebody the other day because they were talking about the rates at 7% and how unbelievable they were. And they were very young. And I said, my parents had an interest rate of 18% when I was born. I was like, can you imagine what that house payment would look like now? And so, I still think the interest rates aren't terrible. But if you are just buying houses or you're just getting into the investment world where you have only done that in the past 10 to 20 years, it does look a little grim. But I think the interest rates are going to come back down a little bit, but not before the homes slow down, if I had to guess.
Yeah, so maybe a slower quarter in the fall and then fall, winter, and then picking up next year. And that's interesting. You guys have had a pretty good year. I mean, your numbers are better than you thought they would be.
For this year, our numbers are a little bit better than we thought they would be. They're very flat compared to last year. So all the statistics pointed to a flat 2023. And we thought that there would be, just because of the interest rates, that they might even go down just a little bit, but they've held on. So to be in August of 2023 and to still be remaining to kind of hold to what we thought it was going to be, we're doing really well.
That's good. And when you say flat, do you mean the same as last year?
Year over year.
Same as last year?
Year.
Okay, because I don't know that a lot of agents would say that they're the same year over year, but maybe they would. It's interesting because you probably affiliate yourself with companies full of professionals. You guys have the way that you do business is elite, kind of. So I'm sure, you take business from anywhere. I'm not saying that you wouldn't, but your main focus is to associate with producers. That's where you get most of your business. So I can see how that might be leveled out. Interesting. So that's good. Go ahead.
And we put a large focus on just making sure that if we set goals for ourselves, that we are able to hit those. And so sometimes that includes just maybe kind of getting outside of our box. So if we have a goal and it looks like maybe we're not going to meet it, or I personally am not going to meet it, I'm not beyond kind of like stepping outside of what I would normally do to try to connect with more people, to try to make more relationships, to go into an area where maybe I wasn't already there, to try to build the business so that we as a company can hit our goals.
Yeah, that's good. And you said you did some job. They hired you to increase resale business or repeat. What was it?
Yes, to increase our resale business. So when I came on 10 years ago, Nelson Galbreath had they had a reputation for doing mostly new home construction sales.
Okay.
And
I gotcha. Okay.
So the goal was to bring me in to increase the percentage of outside or resale open brokerage type transactions.
Do you guys only do real estate?
We are 99% real estate. We do assist clients in simple estates, probate, trust work, but 99% just residential and commercial real estate.
It's awesome. And you know that one of your attorneys has been endeared to our company as Matthew McConaughey. Did you know this?
I did. I just told my attorney call this morning. I was shouting out the success of one of his Title 101 classes with you guys. And I did drop that he was my own personal Matthew McConaughey that I put inside different Myrtle Beach offices, and that he was my secret weapon. And I'm sure that when he sees me, he is going to hurt me for saying that.
He's been amazing. Like, I don't know. he's just very likable.
He is.
Trustworthy. Like when you meet him, you just want, like, I would give my baby to him and say, "Here, hold this." He's just such a
Yeah.
nice guy. It's great. Not all attorneys come across that way, so I'm glad that he does. Tell me what Julie's superpower is. Like, if there's one thing that you would say, "Hey, I got that covered." And I know people hate to talk about themselves, but I ask all my guests that. What is it that you bring to the table that's unique?
Well, I went round and round on this, just kind of thinking through after listening to some of your other podcasts.
Right.
And I would say that based on what I came up with, that my superpower involves the ability to talk to anyone. And I can connect or find a common connection with just about anybody that I talk to, which is really fun part of my job.
Well, that was the part that you said you loved the most, right? You did
Yes.
say if I heard you correctly, that you were surprised by that because growing up you didn't think that would be true. Are you an introvert by nature, or why would you say that growing up you wouldn't have imagined that?
Well, I think growing up, I wouldn't have ever imagined myself in like a sales position, because I think that maybe self-confidence was something that I lacked, but I have found it to be really enjoying, and joyful that I have a gift of talking to people and connecting, which is just not something that I had ever experienced. And so
Mm-hmm.
once I got kind of used to it and comfortable, I felt really good about being able to do that.
Yeah, that's cool. And I would agree with that. I see you at our meetings and you seem right at home, and you always have from the very beginning. So I would agree with that. What's a good book that you can recommend to us? Something that you've read that's made a difference for you if you're a reader. Some people aren't.
I'm a reader. My husband just told me this past weekend that I was a very expensive person to live with because I read about a book a day on the weekends.
Wow.
Um, and I don't like to read books on tablets because I like to turn the pages. So he said that I cost about $10 to $20 a day on the book side. But my favorite book, and probably the one that's made the most impactfulness in my life, is a book called North. It's by Scott Jurek. It is a documentary of a self-told story about how he trekked the Appalachian Trail backwards. And he documented the whole story. He documented the people who came alongside of him
Wow.
and met him and walked with him and fed him and took care of him. But at the end of the day, he made that journey and he did it inside a specific number of hours, which was his goal, with injuries and all kinds of different things. But it was just something that made me feel like if you put your mind to something, you can do it. And he also is the one who made me feel like maybe I could switch my lifestyle to a vegan lifestyle. And
Okay.
I'm not 100% vegan. So don't let me preface it by saying that I'm probably about an 80%, 85%. But he did all of that on plant-based protein. So it was just really cool to read that book and just to see the determination that comes when you put your mind to something.
That is interesting. So how do you spell his last name?
Jurek.
Oh, I almost had it. I had an I. Okay, cool. Have you ever been to the Appalachian Trail?
I have. I've actually hiked it for about 7 days. I was 16 years old. I went with a camp. I carried everything I needed on my back, and I'll never do it again. But it was a great experience.
And is most of what you read, Miss Expensive, is most of what you read fiction, nonfiction? What are you drawn to?
I really try to mix it up. I try every third or fourth book, I try to make it about work. Nathan has a plethora of books he likes for us to read. And so every third or fourth book, I try to bring in a workbook. But I really like self-improvement. I like true stories on people who have endured hardships and how to overcome them. But I would be lying to say that I don't also like the thrillers and the mysteries and the love stories. So I'm really not partial to anything. I mean, I just like to read. So I sci-fi is probably my least favorite type of reading.
Wow, you might be my most well read so far of all my guests. So no wonder you're smarter than me, because I don't read at all. I always listen to Audible and skip through parts I don't like. And my favorite one of my cool books was Green Light by Matthew McConaughey. Ironically, I listen because he actually reads it on Audible. He actually is the narrator, so it was kind of funny. Could have done the book in, like, if you talk normal pace. He does not talk normal pace. You could have probably had the book in half the time, but just to take in his voice is fun.
Yeah.
So the title of I can't believe we're 32 minutes already. That's crazy to me. Time goes like that. The title of this podcast is Rise Up in Real Estate. And you clearly there's so much more to you that I haven't gotten to. Like you're like there's so much under the surface. Like you've got such an interesting story that I want to maybe get you on here again and ask some deeper questions. But tell me, you obviously are committed. Anybody that runs marathons is a committed person, or should be committed. No, is a committed person. Tell me what it is that you do to rise up. Like, is there something on a regular basis in your daily life that you do to kind of rise above mediocre?
Yes, I would say that, and this may or may not be welcome, but I would say what kind of creates that rise up in me is that I'm a committed follower of Jesus. And so I try to live my life on a daily basis of just being a better person. And that keeps me accountable not only to my family, but my job. And then also to a group of girls that I lead who are in high school. So that is something that I feel is just a little bit differently about me that maybe you would know and maybe you wouldn't if you met me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, let me ask you this as a follow-up. That's cool that you lead a group of teenagers. That's a story in itself, I'm sure. But what have you always been a person of faith? Like, is this a childhood thing? You were raised in the church, or what?
Yes, I was raised in the church. My parents raised me in a Lutheran church. And then when I was in high school, I went to a church with a friend. She went to a Baptist church. And to be quite honest, the Baptist youth group was way more fun. And so that's where I spent a lot of my time. And then it just kind of grew from there. Obviously, when I had my first child, it was really important just to introduce her to that world. And I can't remember a time in my life where that was ever very different. I could remember a time in my life where it was definitely like before life change and after life change. And I would hope that other people would be like, oh, I remember when, Julie kind of like made that switch. But I do not remember a time when I have not been led by that.
Yeah. So you feel like other people might know you before Julie and then after Julie, or not? You've been pretty consistent.
No, I think that they would. And I think that's one of the biggest marks of faith, right? Before life change and after.
Yeah.
So I would like to think that people who knew me in a prior life years and years ago would see that I'm more intentional, more focused, more faithful now than I was before.
Yeah, that's cool. You should never feel like you have to apologize for that. You almost apologize when you introduce it, like it might not be accepted. But to me and anybody that's listening to this show, I'm sure that your story is your story. Your beliefs are your beliefs. It's making you, obviously I would have invited you to be on the show if it didn't make you a great person, in my opinion anyway. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I know that it's helped with your relationships with your kids. I bet that's an interesting dynamic to have. I mean, we both have older kids and younger kids, but for me, my older kids are, they're living lives of faith now, thankfully. And then my younger kids are kind of exploring what it means. Like my 7-year-old is a lot like your 8-year-old, probably just starting to recognize life and death and happy and sad and all of the fun things that you get to introduce faith to them. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about you. And gosh, I don't often get off of my episodes with feeling like I've left so much unsaid, but I'm gonna honor our time and your time. And I know our listeners don't go past the sitcom of 30 minutes. So we'll let them listen to this and then we'll get you back on the show again. But Thank you for taking your time. I've learned some things about you. I'm excited about it to learn more, but thanks for being here today. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for bringing your wisdom to Rise Up Nation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, hey, that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for listening to Rise Up in Real Estate. If you liked hanging out with us today, please find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Rise Up in Real Estate. Also, follow us right now on your favorite podcast host to hear more episodes. We really appreciate you spending some of your time with us. And until next time, let's do each other a favor and all help each other rise up.